Welcome, you curious learners, to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that affects every single interaction you have, whether it's a job interview, a first date, or just chatting with a new neighbor. Likability.
Yeah.
How much of it really is within our control and how much is just, well, how we're perceived?
It's a truly fascinating question because communication isn't always about what's explicitly said, it's often about what's felt.
Right.
And we've pulled together a rich stack of sources for this deep dive. We've got insights from Psychology Today, a really comprehensive handbook on communication skills, helpguide.org.
And that Reddit thread.
And yeah, a particularly raw and thought-provoking Reddit thread that really brings this whole debate to a head.
So our mission today is to unpack this idea of likability. We're going to explore actionable strategies from psychology experts, then delve into the subtle, often unconscious power of nonverbal cues. And then, here's where we hit a really crucial and frankly pretty heated debate. We'll dive into an online discussion about whether perceived physical attractiveness dictates social acceptance and maybe even your mental well-being.
It gets intense.
It really does. So what does all this mean for your ability to connect with others in the real world? Okay, let's unpack this. Many experts suggest likability isn't just some mysterious inborn trait. It's a skill you can actually, cultivate.
Absolutely.
From our sources, what are some of the fundamental ways we can start to become more likable?
Yeah, absolutely. The Psychology Today article outlines 10 incredibly practical ways. It starts with something we all think we do well, being a better listener. But it goes deeper than just being quiet. It emphasizes truly hearing what someone says, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Right, not just reloading.
Exactly. And actively conveying attentiveness with things like head nods and genuine ohs and ahs. It also highlights being truly supportive, offering sincere congratulations for achievements, and genuine sympathy for upsets. You want to validate their experience,
Yeah.
Not just brush it off with a casual remark like, well, that's why you make the big bucks, when someone complains about working all weekend. That doesn't land well.
What particularly resonated with me from that Psychology Today piece was the emphasis on follow-up things, like remembering to ask how an exam went or a vacation was, or maybe how a sick kid is feeling. Why is that simple act of remembering and inquiring so powerful for building those likability points?
Well, it's because it shows you truly listened
Right.
and cared enough to retain that information. It builds a deeper connection.
Makes sense.
The source also points to finding common ground, identifying shared interests or opinions to create that connective tissue that pulls people together, and crucially, utilizing body language. A firm handshake, consistent, comfortable eye contact, a genuine smile, and open posture.
What does open posture really mean there?
It just means your arms are relaxed at your side, not folded defensively across your chest. We might process these signals unconsciously, but they profoundly add to our overall impression of a person's likability.
It's also about avoiding common turnoffs, right? Psychology Today really dives into that.
Oh, yeah.
Things like constantly glancing at your phone, which just screams disinterest,
Huge one.
or over-complaining, which, despite its social function sometimes, can be a major drain. The article also cautions against dominating conversations, even if you're a fantastic storyteller, because, well, other people want some stage time too.
Good point.
And, of course, avoiding bragging, including the humble brag, ugh, I'm just so exhausted from all these awards I keep winning, it's just too much work. It signals disingenuousness.
Totally.
The source even advises keeping disagreement to a minimum, unless an issue is truly important, and even then, maybe doing it lightly. You don't want to be the devil's advocate in every single discussion.
Right. And this raises an important question. If these are the behaviors to adopt, what are the counterproductive communication styles we often fall into without even realizing it?
Yeah, what should we watch out for in ourselves?
Well, the Handbook on Communication Skills details 4 distinct roles that consistently cause difficulty in interactions. First, we have the placater.
Okay.
This is the person who always agrees, constantly tries to please, avoids disagreement at all costs. Internally, they often feel worthless, saying things like, whatever you want is okay, I am just here to make you happy.
And then there's the blamer, who is essentially a fault finder, dictatorial, always pointing fingers and saying things like, you never do anything right, what is the matter with you? But the handbook highlights a fascinating internal contradiction. Despite their superior outer demeanor, they actually feel lonely and unsuccessful inside.
Precisely. Then we have the computer, who is very correct, highly reasonable, shows almost no feeling. They speak in a stoic, intellectual manner, often quite removed.
Like Spock, maybe?
Sort of, yeah. But internally, they feel incredibly vulnerable. And finally, the distractor, who gives irrelevant responses and has like angular body language with an internal feeling of, nobody cares, there's no place for me. These are often coping mechanisms developed over time.
Wow, those types are absolutely recognizable. But the handbook suggests the healthiest approach is the assertive style direct, aiming for a win-win and taking responsibility for your own decisions rather than, playing games or manipulating.
That's the goal.
It sounds simple on paper, but how does the handbook suggest we actually develop that assertive style? It can be hard.
It gives very practical strategies. Watching your body posture to ensure it's open and confident, thinking before you speak, not apologizing if it's unwarranted.
Oh, that's a big one. The unnecessary apology.
Huge. And importantly, remembering it's okay to say no. It really emphasizes mutual trust and respect as the absolute foundation for effective communication, moving away from those less healthy roles.
So we've touched on body language a few times already, but helpguide.org really drives home its power. It argues that our nonverbal cues, things like facial expressions, gestures, posture, even our tone of voice, speak the loudest, often even more than our actual words.
Precisely. Your body language can immediately put people at ease, build trust, and draw others towards you. Or, conversely, they can offend, confuse, and undermine what you're trying to convey.
Wow.
The source highlights 5 key roles body language can play. Repetition, which is like strengthening a verbal message, like pointing while giving directions.
Got it.
Contradiction, indicating dishonesty, like saying yes while shaking your head no. That's a dead giveaway.
Right.
Substitution, conveying a message entirely without words, where a facial expression can be way more vivid than words. Complimenting, adding to verbal praise with a genuine pat on the back. And accenting, underlining importance, like a subtle nod or maybe a raised eyebrow to emphasize a point.
And the source makes a crucial point. You can't really fake body language effectively because those unconscious signals often betray true feelings.
Very hard to fake convincingly, yeah.
But you can make a conscious effort to avoid sending negative signals. So if you're trying to connect, folding your arms or avoiding eye contact can unconsciously signal defensiveness or disinterest, even if you don't mean to.
Mm-hmm. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Handbook on Communication Skills also identifies noise and roadblocks that distort communication.
And not just actual noise, right?
No, not just external sounds. They're often internal and incredibly subtle. For instance, the way minds work can be a huge roadblock due to our own perceptions of reality or reliance on stereotypes like that ingrained idea that all lawyers are greedy.
Right, those shortcuts our brains take.
Exactly. And the handbook highlights that these stereotypes are often way simpler than reality. We pick them up from cultural mediators. They're often erroneous by nature, and they're incredibly resistant to change. That makes them powerful communication blockers.
That's where things get really tricky when our own filters get in the way. The handbook mentions that receivers often hear through their own attention filters that block information they deem irrelevant, or emotional filters that block or distort understanding based on their mood or biases at that moment.
Yeah.
And here's the surprising fact. We can think much faster than someone speaks, like around 4 times faster, actually.
Wow, I didn't know it was that much.
Which often leads to distractions or us rehearsing our next response instead of truly actively listening.
It's also crucial to recognize how easily communication can be blocked by certain receiver behaviors that often arise from those internal filters we just mentioned.
Like what?
Like criticizing, where people feel it's their responsibility to make a negative evaluation. Name-calling, which immediately shuts down any chance of getting to know the other person.
Instantly defensive.
Totally. Diagnosing, like presumptuously saying, I can read you like a book, which deeply blocks communication. Or sending solutions like ordering, threatening, moralizing, or advising.
Wait, advising. Isn't advising sometimes helpful?
It can be, but the handbook notes that unsolicited advising is often seen as a basic insult to his or her intelligence. It kind of implies a lack of confidence in the capacity of the other person to cope.
Huh. Never thought of it that way.
These are the very behaviors that consistently lead to misunderstandings, resentment, and, well, a breakdown of likability.
So we've talked a lot about what we can do, about skills and body language and avoiding roadblocks. But what happens when all those efforts run up against deeply ingrained societal perceptions? This is where our next source gets intensely real. We looked at a Reddit thread asking how to be a likable, fun person to be around if people write you off because you're ugly.
Yeah.
The responses couldn't be more divided. It created an incredibly powerful, really heated debate.
On one side, you have a user identified as kelpers,
Mm.
making a very raw and painful argument. Basically, that physical unattractiveness, specifically citing an asymmetrical face, is an insurmountable barrier to likability and social acceptance.
It's impossible to overcome.
That's their feeling. They state, quite bluntly, it's like no winning socially because I'm ugly and people aren't willing to acknowledge my good qualities or give me a chance. They also explicitly say, ugly people exist, and it's not just a mindset. We exist, and we miss out on a lot of friendships, relationships, and sex because of it, and oftentimes even respect.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredibly bleak. They recount really painful experiences,
Yeah.
like being called ugly in public unprovoked, feeling mistreated and rejected,
Yeah.
and genuinely believing that their efforts to be positive or funny are perceived as annoying or cringe simply because of their looks.
They state, quite bluntly, being funny does not overcome ugliness, especially if you aren't naturally funny to begin with, because it will have the opposite effects. They feel they are perceived mostly negatively no matter what I say or do.
It's like a feedback loop of negativity fueled by perception.
Exactly. This user powerfully highlights the halo effect, where attractiveness is often linearly associated with a better personality, and its inverse, the horn effect, where unattractiveness leads to negative perceptions.
So good looks mean good person, bad looks mean bad person, basically.
In that view, yeah. They argue that these effects make it impossible to make people see me outside of my appearance or make people respect me, even if they improve their body and hygiene. The post expresses deep depression and a feeling that they will never be the most popular or liked among average to attractive folks.
Then they weren't alone in feeling that way.
No. No, another user, G0Dzilla, supported this, adding, if someone is truly ugly, no amount of confidence or self-esteem will change that. Just full stop.
That kelper's perspective is incredibly raw and painful. It seems to completely contradict the idea that likability is a cultivated skill, that we can change perceptions through effort. How do we even begin to reconcile such deeply felt experiences of rejection with all the advice we've just heard about communication strategies?
It's a critical tension, absolutely. But the thread, importantly, pushed back hard against that kind of absolute determinism.
Okay, so what was the counterargument?
While other commenters insisted that mindset, confidence, and personal effort are paramount. One user, Zilverschoon, said, accept that you are ugly and own it. If you own being ugly, people won't see it.
Like lean into it almost.
Kinda, yeah. Another, Diligent Rice, 2834, argued that most people who are ugly just need a haircut and an exercise and skin routine, and that investing in appearance will still make you more physically attractive than someone who doesn't. So effort still matters, even if you don't fit conventional standards.
And there were multiple users who suggested that personality and social skills can absolutely compensate for perceived unattractiveness, right?
Absolutely. They cited examples of ugly AF comedians who are widely liked because they have an aura, they're charming, or they're just unfazed by rejection.
They focus on other things.
Right. They advised focusing on building self-esteem through accomplishments, cultivating skills, even financial success, leading to a kind of happiness glow that can take away from the gloomy state.
That's interesting, the idea of an internal state radiating outwards.
Yeah, and one user, you said, 1544, even shared their own detailed journey, emphasizing the power of improving social skills, body language, style, grooming, hygiene, and hobbies as a long process that takes true discipline, dedication, and commitment to overcome being bullied for their looks.
So real lived experience pushing back.
Definitely. This truly highlights the profound tension between external perception and internal agency. There was strong disagreement with the idea that ugliness is the root cause of all social problems.
What did they think the root cause was then?
Well, commenters suggested that people who are treating you bad because you are ugly are bad people, shifting the focus, and that the solution is to stop caring about what people think about you, love yourself, and find the right people for you. User Susmet11 bluntly stated, I bet people just don't get good energy from you since you're always sad and antisocial. I sincerely doubt that any of it is because you're ugly.
Oof, that's pretty direct.
It is. It's a powerful and often uncomfortable clash of perspectives playing out right there in the thread.
So, okay, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've heard that physical appearance can undeniably impact initial perceptions, sometimes quite negatively, and that can lead to very real pain and social rejection.
We can't dismiss that lived experience.
Absolutely not. Yet we've also heard a strong counterargument, often from people who have lived similar experiences, saying that personal effort, attitude, and communication skills can overcome these barriers, leading to genuine connections and a fulfilling life.
So this raises that important question. How do we navigate this incredibly complex landscape?
Yeah, where do we go from here?
The sources, when you look at them together, seem to suggest that while those initial, often biased judgments based on appearance may occur, sustained likability and genuine connection depend heavily on what you do and how you communicate.
So action over initial impression in the long run.
Kind of, yeah. It's about communication competence. The Handbook on Communication Skills defines this not just as speaking correctly, but truly connecting, making sure your message is accurate, clear, understood, and that you adapt it appropriately to different situations to achieve shared goals.
This means being adaptable, right? Showing conversational involvement by truly listening, managing the flow of conversation respectfully.
Exactly. It also means showing empathy, ensuring effective communication that achieves shared meaning, and behaving appropriately for the specific context. It's about being aware of your own emotional filters and maybe the other person's, and being able to adjust your approach accordingly.
So even if you feel you're facing negative bias.
Exactly. Even in the face of perceived negative biases or those ingrained societal filters, focusing on cultivating these core communication competencies, being a better listener, offering support, finding common ground, using open and inviting body language, and speaking clearly with what Dennis Rivers in the handbook calls I messages. That seems to be the most empowering path forward.
Tell us about those I messages. How do they work?
Well, instead of saying, "You made me angry," a you message, which sounds like blame, an I message focuses on your own experience. I feel angry when describe the specific behavior because explain the impact on you. It's less accusatory and opens the door for understanding.
Okay. That makes sense.
And his 7 actions for effective communication provide a really powerful blueprint building on these ideas.
Give us one or two of those that particularly stand out for someone trying to improve their likability, maybe facing some of these challenges.
Well, what's often overlooked is the second point. Explain your conversational intent and invite consent. It sounds a bit formal, maybe,
Yeah, a little.
but simply stating up front, hey, my goal here is just to brainstorm some solutions, not to assign blame, or look, I just want to share how I'm feeling about this, I'm not trying to criticize you, can cut through so much potential miscommunication and put the other person at ease.
Setting the stage clearly.
Exactly. Another crucial one is number 4. Translate complaints and criticisms into specific requests. So instead of, you never help out, which is just a complaint.
Which goes nowhere good,
Right.
usually.
It becomes, I'd really appreciate it if you could help with the dishes tonight. It shifts from accusation to a clear, positive request for what you do want.
That's a profound shift right there. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, you're actively creating a path forward.
Precisely. And the first action, listen more carefully and responsively, is absolutely foundational. This means acknowledging what you hear, maybe paraphrasing it back even if you disagree, before expressing your own view. This separates acknowledging from approving, which is a really crucial distinction.
So you're showing you heard them, even if you don't agree.
Exactly. And all 7 points, which also include expressing yourself more clearly, like with those I messages, asking open-ended questions, expressing more appreciation, and really making better communication an important part of your everyday life, they all build on the idea that consistent practice and seeing every conversation as a growth opportunity is absolutely key.
It truly comes down to this then. While you might not control others' initial biases or perceptions, especially those tied to appearance, which can be deeply ingrained, you absolutely control your communication.
That's where your agency lies.
By consistently practicing and honing these skills, you can actively shape how interactions unfold, fostering understanding, building genuine connections, and ultimately maybe even shifting some of those initial perceptions over time. So what's the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive into likability? It's not just about being nice, is it? It's about mastering a set of communication skills that allow you to connect genuinely, even when faced with deeply ingrained preconceived notions, and to persist in building those connections.
Yeah, ultimately the power lies in understanding that communication is a dynamic transactional process. It's not about being someone you're not, but about honing the ways you interact to build trust and rapport. It requires self-awareness and understanding of others' filters and, frankly, consistent effort.
Remember, as the Handbook on Communication Skills wisely notes, communication is transactional, meaning each person is both sending and receiving simultaneously, constantly influencing each other.
It's a two-way street, always.
So, while some may believe that societal biases, particularly around appearance, are overwhelming, and the Reddit thread shows how real that feeling is, The actionable insights from our sources suggest that by consistently applying conscious communication strategies, you can shift perceptions and cultivate more meaningful relationships in your life.
And here's a thought for you to carry forward. If, as one source suggested, listening is more than merely hearing with our ears, what might you truly hear and understand about yourself and about others if you commit to actively applying even just one of the communication techniques we've discussed today?
Hmm.
What kind of deeper, more meaningful connections could you potentially unlock?
Until next time, keep diving deep.